movie notes on 40 Days and 40 Nights, 2002 film, 25 July 2025 viewing. Here I, Tanis Coralee of Seattle, talk through my movie notes for my Friday, 25 July 2025 viewing of the 2002 film 40 Days and 40 Nights, which is a film about a man named Matt who challenges himself to go 40 days and 40 nights without having sex, and how that is perceived and handled by other men in his network. And so it's a challenge he poses to himself, so in that sense a self-challenge. So a self-challenge is something that somebody does and is like, you know, I'm going to do this for me, and I challenge myself to do this, which is different than a challenge from somebody else, where somebody's like, I challenge you, and it like challenges another person. And it kind of, it commences in part, or, you know, Matt is a Matthew, kind of a biblical name, and he's in church, and there's like the person in the confession booth, and he's like, I'm gonna do this, and then there was like, you know, you can't do that, and then a bunch of his, you know, other men in the network are like, you can't do that, and he's like, I'm gonna do it. So it's literally just about him doing that, and then, you know, they started like a betting pool on, is he gonna make it all the way, like people in his other men in his network. So that's literally the plot of it. And so I'm not going to say whether he makes it or not, because that's the plot of the movie. And so it's like, is there anything that what causes him to do the self-challenge? So it kind of starts with, he's having a lot of sex with different women, and he like has these like, you know, it's like an earthquake, and there's a crack in the ceiling, and there's a black hole and stuff in it, like keeps happening with different women. And so he kind of like decides maybe he should take a break from having sex, since there's all of this gruesome, you know, imagery comes to mind when he's having sex. So that's where it comes from. And then I was like, okay, can I provide, so in watching this, like I'm going like, comes across as like, so the people are, I'm guessing, it's not my culture. My sexual orientation is asexual, so I'm guessing heterosexual. So I'm like, heterosexuals think a lot about sex, and like, it's like, which is what I was saying, I don't understand stuff like this. I'm not like bodily aroused like heterosexuals or sexuals are. I'm like, I don't really spend time thinking about that, other than like, well, do say, so like my Lewis Hamilton and my Brad Pitt and I, like, so they communicate, I have sexual needs, and I go, okay, so that means when we live together and we are making sweet love, the frequency and spacing needs to take into account their needs, and I would put that above mine, because I'm like kind of like about the whole thing, or like non-valent. And someone's like, if they want to like positively incentivize that, I'm like, do we, you know, like I/we, emphasis on we, get to eat as much Cheesecake Factory as we want, that kind of thing. And Brad's like, well, you got Lewis's slice of plain chocolate, now maybe I want you to get a different type of chocolate, because I like chocolate too. Okay. All right. So there's that kind of thing, is like, what I'm trying to say is like, the whole like sexual thing for me is like, it's kind of like abstract mathematics, from like, gotta talk about it in different terms. I don't dress a certain way for like sexual provocation. I don't speak a certain way or eat certain things for like sexual encryption and stuff. And all like that goes just whoosh, you know. So like, except for there's a lot of really sexualized things. So I'm like, I'm guessing that this is about them being like trying to turn people on sexually, or being about them sexually turned on. And I'm like, that's my guess. But like, I'm asexual, so I'm like, I'm not sexually attracted to anything. Okay. So it's just asexual, a lack of sexualism, so to speak. So that's kind of my perspective on this. Is my men and I communicate, and they use food, like massive slices of cheesecake. They're like, it's harder than your walk-arounds, honey. We could eat a bunch of cheesecake. I'm like, cheesecake is like one of the cheesecake. I don't dislike cheesecake, but it's also not like ever been a thing. Does that mean cheesecake's gonna become a thing? So many food questions, right? And then, you know, frequency and spacing. Like, what about the river otter offspring? Do they get a special room upstairs, or the sunroom, I guess, where they can chill while Mama and Papa make sweet, sweet love? And they devour their, you know, hard-boiled egg and or pan-seared scallop. There we go. So my movie notes on 40 Days and 40 Nights 2002 film, 25 July 2025 notes.